Hello everyone, I'm Black Marvin, a progressive psychedelic trance artist, a professional sound designer, and I'm also a teacher for electronic music production. Today, we're going to take a look at Liquid Synths for Pigments 4 by Fractal Sounds. Liquid Synths focus on bringing the warm, rich, silky, almost like creamy characteristics of the analog synthesizers and bring that into Pigments and kind of get the best of both worlds here because we are sourcing analog synths, wavetables, and audio signals. And when we say power of Pigments, we're talking about really the wavetable engine, the sample engine, the filter collection of Pigments, and also the effects section. Also, especially the new distortions and the super unison that came out in the Pigments 4 update. There's just a lot of stuff that kind of takes the analog synth sources and can bring that to another level. So we're getting best of both worlds here. And today we're going to do an overview of that pack. And I have a couple tips also regarding some presets, how they have been made, and how you can get the best of it. Before we dive in, if you want more videos about Pigments sound design, well, first, there's already a lot on the channel. So I suggest you go and take the playlist in the description and just watch all the Pigments content. And there's also a lot of stuff coming up. So if you don't want to miss that, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. And now let's dive into Liquid Synths for Pigments 4. All right, let's go. We are inside Liquid Synths and we're going to do an overview of the content of the pack. Just a global overview, and then we're going to dive into each sections. First, you have the arpeggiators, and some of them sound like this. Feel like playing this one an octave high. So they are arpeggiator, they are not sequence in the sense that the notes doesn't change aside from them being arpeggiated. What you can do also always whenever there's something arpeggiated or sequenced inside Pigments, you can disengage the sequencer and just run them as regular leads or any content you want. Now moving on to the basses. That's burnt bounce. There's buttery. There's citrus dreams. These are made to be multi-genre, so definitely they could be used in a lot of stuff. So again, it's a good middle ground that could be used for anything. And the goal of the pack was really to capture the essence of these vintage synths and run them into Pigments. And I think in these bass, you can really hear these classic vintage synth character when it comes to basses. Speaking of which, float, funker, if you want to see these used more in context, stay tuned on the channel because I'm gonna create some demo tracks like with different styles, and you can see these preset actually being, I'm just hitting the notes right there, but you can see some more in context uses. There's a bunch of other basses, but I think they're cool, but we're gonna move on to some even cooler stuff. Let's look at the leads. Okay, so what I just did is I loaded up the MIDI file from the demo track. Listening to these leads, it's gonna be a bit better if we listen with the MIDI from the demo track. Let's listen to Alpha 1. And for most of these leads, I'm gonna listen to it on a lower octave. I think they can sound, if you're looking for something that is like very high synth texture, it's there. But if you go on a lower octave, you can get also some really cool results. Okay, this one, Burner. Let's have a look at this one. So in the description of the pack, it mentions warm, rich, and colorful sounds and textures. And I think this preset really represents it. That's what we're going for in this pack. Now on the macros, there's most of the time the first macro is either a cutoff or open knob. Basically, it articulates the presets. There's also the super unison knob that you will see often, and it's using this new super unison from Pigments for update. And it really injects that unison 80s vibes into the synths. So it's available if you want it, but most of the time it opens without it, but it's on a macro. So if you want to inject that super unison vibe, it's there. And same thing, you can see in this one, there's an overburn macro, which basically means it's like some kind of oversaturation. And often you will see there's just some saturate knob. And I'm curious, I haven't checked it, but germanium. So it's also using a lot of distortion from the Pigments 4 update. Germanium tape. These are really cool distortion that has a bit of that analog roots, especially tape. It's tape saturation, and it's utilizing a lot of that. So there's that also in the pack. Another one, Circuit Soap. You can hear this one has a lot of reverb and delay. If you're new to, I'm gonna mention it because you know what, why not? If you're new to Pigments, you're a beginner or you're just like intermediate, but you're not so advanced. Just know that you can open up the effects section right here on this panel, and most of the time these effects are responsible for that. Obviously, most presets are built in like their optimal way, but if you want to go for either a drier version of it, you can just disengage that, or you can also use your own third-party delay plugins or reverb, your favorite ones. So you disengage that because you don't want to overdo it, and you can do it later in your processing chain. Also, just know in this case, it's not there, but reverb is of course reverb, but in Pigments 4 there's also shimmer, which is responsible for a reverb type behavior. So keep your eyes open for this one too if you're looking to remove some reverb. But yeah, most of the preset are did to their optimal form. There's so many I want to show, but I want to keep this video light. But I will definitely show Dead Rat, which is a nice lead that is inspired by an artist that has a name that resembles Dead Rat. Let me know in the comments if you know who we're referring to. This sounds gorgeous. And if we look a bit of like what's going on under the hood here, actually this really showcase the spirit of the pack. If we take a look at here, we have two sample engines. And if we take a look here, it's the Prophecy Wavetables. So it's a sample coming from the Prophecy Wavetable. Actually, it's a wavetable, but it's been used as a sample and not as a wavetable. You can, of course, use them as wavetables because that's what they are, but it's a peculiar technique I use here to just get the wavetable signal, but inside the sample engine of Pigments. And then because of that, we really get a source that sounds like an analog synth because that's the purpose of the wavetables here. The Prophecy analog style wavetables, there are snapshots of analog vintage synthesizers. So we're really like running the DNA of analog synths in there, and we are utilizing the gorgeous filters of Pigments and also gorgeous effects. I don't know how you felt about the chorus here, but to me, it really feels like thick and real and organic, and yeah, that's the spirit behind this pack, Liquid Synths for Pigments. Okay, so for now, one last lead. It's gonna be Liquid Circuitry. I'm just gonna hit a couple notes on the keyboard here. That was Liquid Circuitry. You can see that it's nothing too crazy because we're not into like side transfusion, for example. Well, in side transfusions, the macros are just like over the top. In this pack, it's really just meant to give you alternatives and ways to interact with the sound. Now, pads. This one is called Dune Runner. I don't even think I'm gonna comment on this one. I think it is what it is, like you can hear. And also by the name, I think you can deduce with the inspiration behind this one. Let's get another one, The Strangest Things. Really sweet analog sounding pad. And finally, Zan's Himmer. Let's check this one out. And I think, yeah, there's no chords here. Whenever you see no chords on a preset, it means that usually comes in with chords. Again, gonna give a bit of info if you are like some sort of beginner or not so advanced. If you want to know if there's chords engaged on a preset, it's like Pigments. You can go here. Actually, this little module is actually where the chords are. So if it's on chord, and if there's more than one voices, it means there's an actual chord. And if you go here, you can see which one. This is a minor chord. And yeah, same thing here. And it's engaged by default. So it sounds like this. And if we engage actually no chords, we're just gonna have one single note. So if you're doing some writing for some movie scoring or something like this, or just ambient stuff, but you want to dial in your own chords, you just go here, hit no chords, and then you're good to go. I'm gonna show you one plug here, Halimide. So in this one, it's the case, and I think there's a couple of these presets that are similar. They are not sequence per se, but if you hold the note, you'll get some sequence. So you can either use them as is, or as always, you can just click here, disengage the sequence, and that's valuable for also all the sequence and ARPs in the pack. And you can just hit a regular plug. Now the sequence, last but not the least, There's note changes in these sequence. I'll give you a couple tricks again if you want to not necessarily use them as sequence as is, because that's the thing with these. They are really cool, but it's like a big commitment because you have either to, in some other synths, actually, you have to either use them as a sequence, and that's pretty much it. Or like in Serum, for example, if there's a sequence, it's pretty much, unless you know how to deprogram the sequence, you kind of stuck with it. So it's like, yeah, cool, but I have to either use it as is or not use it. Well, in Pigments, it's not the case. You can either use the sequence or use the sound of the sequence and sequence it yourself. Okay, so let's check out Artemis. Really cool and gorgeous sound, like sounds rich. Yeah, so you have the sequencer here. First thing you can do is, well, you have the notes here, but you can dial it back to just being an arpeggiator, so there's not going to be notes changing. And of course, you can just unengage this and run your own arpeggiator. This one is called Cercle. This one has really some old school melodic techno kind of vibe. And finally, Sycorax. So that was an overview of the pack. I think these presets are somewhat iconics. They are all, really good and fairly unique. But I did choose some of the iconic ones. So if you can like quickly grasp the identity and the DNA of this pack. So that was an overview of Liquid Synths for Pigments 4 by Fractal Sounds. And that's it for this video. That was Liquid Synths for Pigments 4 by Fractal Sounds. I hope you enjoyed. And as a sound designer, that was just so much fun. It's an amazing tools. Softwares of today, it's incredible. So it was kind of like the past meets the future sort of thing here. And also, especially the thing is like this kind of aesthetic, like even though it is like vintage synths and these are old synths we can use this word old, but in today's like 2023, maybe you're watching this in the future, but in 2023, there's a lot of genre and style of electronic music that still use a lot that aesthetic, those sounds, like the 80s sounds, the vintage kind of sound. If we look at artists like Stefan Bodson, Tale of Us, even, myself to auto name drop myself, but I like to include these kind of sounds inside my music, and I know I'm not the only one visibly. So yeah, I think that's more than relevant to have some kind of a bank like this, and especially in Pigments to be able to like get all this thing full power. And that's it. Don't forget to subscribe if you need some help with music production, learning all this, sound design, mixing, mastering. I have a community of students. I also have some stuff brewing up. It's not ready yet to be revealed, but it's going to be on the side of learning and everything. There's more stuff coming up. But right now, yeah, community of students. If you want more information, you can write to me on Instagram. I think it's the best messaging service for me right now to get in touch. And yeah, I will see you in either a lesson or video or a festival, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much the realm of possibilities, but we never know. I'll see you soon. Happy producing.